Hi, my name is Jordan Wilson. Robin Koroluk and I are back to discuss diversity matters as part of our CFA Society of Saskatchewan speaker series. In this episode, we're going to look at diversity in culture and background. Then we're going to focus a bit on diversity in gender, because that's a big issue in Saskatchewan. We're going to talk a bit about, do companies understand that gender balance is a good thing? And we'll also look a bit, why is there a lack of diversity in the CFA profession, especially in Canada and Saskatchewan? So that's sort of what we'll look at today. And I'll start out by speaking a bit on diversity in culture and background. Because if you recall from my speaker introduction, I've had the fortune of living and working in the Cayman Islands, the Bahamas, Switzerland, and spent extensive time in Asia, in Singapore, and to some extent in Hong Kong. So I've been lucky enough to work in a variety of cultures, languages, and have been an immigrant in 3 different countries myself, so I've seen it on the other side of the fence. So turning to our first, diversity in culture and background. The CFA designation is truly a global professional credential. You write the same exam whether you're based in Sydney, Australia, Zurich, Switzerland, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Same exam, same program. So if you want to move to Australia with a CFA designation, it's recognized there. Not true to the same extent if you're a financial planner or a public accountant. The other thing with culture is that we do see a lot of cultural diversity, especially in Saskatchewan. Our current board of directors has actually 3 members who immigrated themselves. One who came over as an adult from Vietnam, another from China, and another as a young girl from Asia as well. And Juliana is our current president. So a lot of cultural diversity within Saskatchewan's board of directors. And you see that as well when you meet a lot of our CFA members, a wide variety of cultures. So culture in Saskatchewan tends not to be a big issue. We also saw when we looked at careers for all and careers in finance, that there's a lot of diversity in our backgrounds, which I think is equally important. People bringing different perspectives to jobs is important. It's not all finance majors. Some, yes. Robin, yes. But she's probably in the minority in our current CFA board in Saskatchewan. We've got 2 economists. We've got 3 professional accountants. We have a PhD in applied mathematics, a master's in cybersecurity. We even have a professional engineer, which doesn't seem like a great segue into becoming a CFA. And one of our past presidents, she has her master's in fine arts. That's even farther afoot than in engineering. But together you bring different perspectives, which is fantastic. We have a lot of diversity and experience here as well. We have a couple of equity analysis. We have people that work in the private equity field, which is much different than just pure equities for common shares. Robin and I are both wealth managers. We have investment advisors, people that work in the capital markets, in treasury functions. One of our board members is the chief information security officer for a company. Another runs a company for data analytics. So again, Culturally, education-wise, career-wise, a lot of diversity just on the CFA Society Saskatchewan Board. But one area, even though we do have 3 of our 12 board members are currently female, Robin's going to talk a bit about the lack of diversity on a gender basis within the CFA program worldwide, but also within Saskatchewan. Robin?
Thanks, Jordan. As Jordan mentioned, diversity from a gender perspective is fairly limited in the investment industry. Currently, there is 18% investment professionals are women, only 18%, yet 41% of Canadian women are responsible for their family decisions. Women are going to control 10 of 35 trillion total US dollars. Women add value, 41% higher return on equity in gender diverse companies. This is something that has drawn attention of many companies out there just based on the statistics. Companies are definitely starting to get it as well. 34% of CEOs saw diversity as a key to success. Female leadership increased over time. 1998, there was about 15.6%, increased to 21.9% in 2019. But there's still room for growth. At present, there's only 5.4% female CEOs in the top S&P 500 firms, so 500 companies in the US. So Jordan, I would like to pick your brain a little bit more just based on your diverse background and really what your experience have been working with women in various different countries. And do you think culture defines a woman's career trajectory?
Not at all. And we'll get into that aspect when you talk about senior management, because there's always a perception of a glass ceiling, which is a common phrase that there's a limit to what a person, whether that be female or culture or race, can achieve. Right. They bump into the glass ceiling. They can't go to the top. So we'll get into that when you look at senior leadership. But I've been fortunate, and one thing I've told people is that in the Bahamas, trust company, about 150 people, 85% of the employees, and I'm talking trust managers, trust officers, so educated, they've taken this society trust and estate practitioner courses, they're professionals, they deal with clients. 85% are women. As I said earlier, I ran a project in the Bahamas for 18 months where I had to hire roughly 25 people over the time period. I think I hired 3 guys, ended up having to get rid of one of them. I wasn't out there saying, okay, I need to do gender equity or this or that or the other thing. I'm out there looking at resumes and interviewing people, and I'm hiring the best person or the best fit for the job.
Right.
It just so happened that they were overwhelmingly women. If they'd been overwhelmingly men, I would have hired them. You hire the best. And we see that just sort of globally, is that in my experience, we're in a phase now where if you work hard and don't accept failure or mediocrity, you can get ahead because no one's sort of holding you back. There are other factors, I think, that impact women, but that's changing. Mm-hmm. And just to mention that briefly now, where it used to be when I was a young accountant, it was up or out. If you wanted to stay in public practice, you had to make partner. Same in a law firm. And by that means you have to put in a ton of hours. And a lot of women, and even some guys, say, I want to start a family. I want that work-life balance to some extent. Sorry, son. Sorry, daughter. You either become partner or we spit you out. And what we've seen over the last 20 years is a move to directorships, directors, principals. So there's that companies are recognizing we don't want to lose quality people because we're pushing them. So we are creating that medium space between partner. So they don't have to be expected to work 80, 100 hours a week. You can have a bit of middle ground. And actually what they're finding in that case is that more men are taking advantage of that because they also want that work-life split.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like how you highlighted about hiring the right person, because although I'm presenting some data on having more women, I think it really just comes down to giving the right person the right opportunity if they deserve it. So.
And once they're in that position, putting them in a position to further succeed.
That's right.
And that's sort of, to me, where more of the gender or culture issues come into play, is once you hire someone, give them the opportunity to thrive. Don't push them too fast. But, it's like, a gardening metaphor, let the flowers grow. Don't just try to accelerate everything.
Right.
So create an environment that fosters professional growth.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Jordan. So, as I mentioned earlier, that companies are understanding the gender balance improves the bottom line. So, Fortune 500 firms with more women on their board found that they had higher financial performance. That includes their return on equity, return on sales, return on invested capital, and really that diversity related to success. It also showed that risk management was a little more relative from a perspective that women can bring different perspectives on business and risk. So they found that they were taking on less risk because they were getting different perspectives. Innovation. Women in senior positions foster innovation and creativity in the workplace, as well as client acquisition. Some female clients prefer dealing with female advisors, and women live longer. So increasingly, they're going to be the decision maker in the next, especially 20 years. So just on the topic of senior positions and innovation and risk management, Jordan's had a lot of experience traveling the world, working in different cultures, different countries. What were your overall experiences in Asia dealing with women in higher up positions?
Well, I'd like to make just one comment on something that Robin said first, is about the increase in women having control of the financial decisions and the wealth in families. And that's due maybe more to women more in the workforce than they were in the 1950s or 60s. It's the longevity. Women live longer. But there's a lot more and a lot less families, a lot more partnerships where the two spouses are equal providers of the wealth. And so both partners want equal say. And I do think there's a lot to be said about people like to work with similar people, or they're maybe more comfortable. I see that maybe with cultural. Some people like to work with people from their own cultures or own countries that have immigrated. And so with women, yes. And you're seeing this gap between women advisors and the growing number of women that control the wealth in families. So if I'm a company, I want to address that big time.
Absolutely.
As far as your question on senior management, and this kind of goes to my earlier comments when I talked about the Bahamas Trust Company. Now, one story that I want to mention is in Hong Kong. I didn't meet her very often, but the lady that was in charge in Hong Kong for all of UBS Wealth Management, her name was Kathy Shi. And her assistant was a lady named Amy Lowe. They both ran the entire UBS Wealth Management organization in Asia. So there was no glass ceiling for them. There was no, you're just a woman, you can be an admin person, but you can't be the person that calls the shots. Kathy took over in 2002, and assets in Asia were about 60 billion US dollars. 2018, she retired. She'd brought it up to 300 billion. So again, no one said, okay, we're not going to give this to a woman. They said, this person is strong. She's competent. She's hardworking. It's got nothing to do with whether she's a woman or a man. And she did a fantastic job. So in Asia, with UBS, the two top people in the entire wealth management organization were female. And if you had met Kathy and Amy, as I've done, I mean, it got nothing to do if they're Asian, women, whatever. They were some of the sharpest people that I've ever met. And some of their business practices, as I've discussed with Robin, you know, it sort of went beyond that, just how you treat people in general. You know, you don't look down on people. You treat everyone with the respect they deserve. You don't accept mediocrity. If someone tells you you can't do something, you don't listen to that. And that's what Kathy actually said in one of her final interviews, was basically, she didn't see a glass ceiling because she didn't believe in it. And she doesn't believe there is a glass ceiling, but people use that as a crutch.
Right.
Oh, I'm not good enough, so there must be some other alternative. But again, in Asia, which in a lot of ways is still very male-centric, 2 women ran UBS. Bahamas, like I said, 85% women. So again, it's sort of, you don't really see that a lot anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And good managers, I mean, when I was young, someone asked me, you know, are you a sexist, a racist, you know, all this sort of stuff, you know, just having the conversation. And I thought about it and I said, you know, I'm an economist. And they said, well, you know, what do you mean by that? I said, you know, I want to hire someone that lets me go home at 5 o'clock at night. I don't want to say, oh, I'm going to hire my buddy who I can go out drinking with on the weekend. And darn, he's not a very good worker, so I've got to be here every night till 9. I want to hire the best person that lets me leave on time. And I can trust them with the work quality, meeting with clients, all that stuff. And that's what I want to hire. And if it's male, female, black, white, doesn't matter. And again, I've been maybe a little bit fortunate because I've had great experiences with so many different cultures.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Jordan. As my next slide alludes to, culture does define diversity, and I do think that there is different cultures out there and different perceptions, different stereotype norms. You're going to look up to your role models, and depending on what your role models are doing for a career, that might be the career you end up in. So I think the more females, but more individuals we see in finance, the more role models you're going to have to look up to. So help continuing to shift the corporate culture. So we need to try to help change that. And again, not saying we need to have 50% men, 50% women. We need to just have the right people going into careers that they love and enjoy. Hard versus soft skills. I think that's another reason for the lack of diversity. I think not everyone understands the variety of different careers available in finance. So as we mentioned in our previous series, that could include an analyst, planning, wealth management, research, client-facing, internal teams. It also has an undefined career path, which is also a little scary for some individuals going into finance. So as we mentioned before, some careers have a clear path. Corporate finance, risk management, regulatory, there's set roles that you can move into over time based on time and experience, but some offer flexibility, leveraging and traveling involved, which you can progress based on your own pace. And unbiased practices, this is just done through some often dynamics that are ignored and team construction.
I think just on that point, Robin, one of the reasons that we harp on this undefined career path
Yes.
is that the evidence is clear. There's slightly more women enter public accounting than men. There's slightly more, depending on the jurisdiction, women enter law than men. And if you look at sort of the nuts and bolts of a finance career, it's very similar in skill sets and personality to law or public accounting. And part of the reason we think that there's an issue with women going into finance is that lack of clarity of the career path. I know if I go work for Ernst & Young or PricewaterhouseCoopers, I'm going to work there for a period of time, I'm going to attain my CPA designation, and then maybe I'll go work for a controller, maybe I'll stay in public practice. You sort of have an idea, a game plan for the next few years, what's going to happen. Similar with law, I'm going to article, become a lawyer, attend the bar, go here, here, here. It's not really that way at times, and that's something I think that there are definitely career paths.
That's right. You
may just have to sort of identify your own path because it's not as clear as, say, in public accounting or law.
100%. And I think that's really where it comes down to speaking with that mentor or someone in the industry who's had that experience that can share real life examples of what career paths might be suitable for you based on your interests and based on your skill set. And truly, we all need to be open to change and maybe a little bit of discomfort too, to be able to succeed in something we enjoy doing. So sometimes I don't want to say easy way, but sometimes the clear path isn't maybe the best decision for you, but maybe is the only decision that you're able to make based on the information presented to you.
And I think that last thing that Robin said is the key part, and that's part of what we're doing with the speaker series, hopefully, is outlining different career paths and different personality type jobs for CFAs. So that gives you more information and allows you to understand that there may be a finance role perfect fit for you and your personality and your objectives, and to look at those and not just say, well, the path of least resistance is becoming an accountant or something else just because you know that the next 10 years of your life is perfectly planned out for you.
Absolutely.
And that goes, again, we're talking here on gender diversity in this area, but it goes for, again, cultural backgrounds. It goes for guys. It's just sort of everybody is sort of find a role that sort of fits your objectives, your personality, and then do a little bit more legwork. There's Google is your friend in this area. There's so much information out there. So, do some homework before, deciding that, the path of least resistance is the way to go. So I think we're done for today on this session anyways. Thank you for listening. And before we go, I'd like to again thank our corporate sponsors, without whom we could not put on these type of series. And I know that our sponsors for the Women in Finance, for the high school series, for everything, are so interested in having better diversity, whether that be culture, whether that be gender, in their businesses, because again, that is a growth opportunity for them to better serve their clients. So they love sponsoring these kind of events, and we appreciate their time and commitment. Thank you again for listening, and we'll speak with you in the next episode.
Thank you.